I don't think time travel exists. I just mean like robots taking over. I'm not going that far. I don't think time travel will ever exist.
Yeah,
That's about as sci-fi. It's like I love sci-fi as much as the next person, but that's about as like impossible as it gets to me. That doesn't
but
make
you know
any
how
sense.
many smart people 100 years would have said this is impossible? Probably.
Nah, that's so different.
So well, it's both
Time travel
impossible.
is bending like the laws of physics in so many unnatural ways that
I
it just
mean,
doesn't make any sense
the
to me.
laws of physics that we currently use are not actually true as well, right?
It's the uptick which is particularly impressive, where they went from 400,000 to a million in like a month. The real test is going to be if they go from 1 million to 2 million in a month or two, because like going to 1 million in a month is very much, do we have a ton of bots now? But going from 1 million to 2 million and the actives increasing is a bit more, okay, maybe there's some real players here and stuff like that.
Couldn't you argue, devil's advocate, that even if it goes double again, that it's just like double the bots?
Yeah, you could definitely argue that. What's the big testament is you have to see what they're doing. And right now, they haven't really disclosed. They haven't been like, we're seeing 100,000 people participating on the Guild of Guardians leaderboard. You know what I mean? Like, it's that sort of information that's going to be particularly interesting. And as Illuvium releases and things like that, we should get a really clear picture of how much of that 1 million passport owners are real. But that being said, Passport's an interesting one. Now, I don't know this sort of field all that well, but is an email harder to bot than a crypto wallet, or at least does it take more effort?
I think they're both pretty easy for bots, right?
But you can set up a contract to bot a crypto wallet with pretty much no effort at all.
Yeah, I think wallet is actually easier because email, you actually have to have a provider that doesn't like ban your email accounts if they're like obviously even looking like bots. Like I know that one guy was scrapping, for example, website data on Illuvium leaderboards, just had had like a Gmail account that would send him, I don't know, every 50 minutes or something an update, or when there was like, okay, this person now MMR changed, therefore you know that person is playing. So if you want to like play into them, now is like a good time to press the Q button, or you see, oh, the MMR changed now, so they're out of the game. Because the server had the data immediately, and then you play out the animation, so you would know, okay, like 60 to 90 seconds after this, the guy is going to press Q again, so then I can have like a high elo game, and he would have that data scrapped and have him send a bunch of emails from that, and Google would see that as a bot. Like would just see, oh, the email has this repetitive structure, and there's only this one number or something changing, or this name is changing. It would just like ban the Gmail accounts, right? So I mean, you can probably find like a mail provider that doesn't ban you for that and so on, but
or you would have to set your own, and then you would have to have servers and stuff. So yeah, I guess like
it's like a bit more effort, I guess.
Wallets are definitely easier. If I click on MetaMask, I can have 10 new wallets in 10 seconds. Who do you think?
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is Passport has sign in with Google and it has sign in with Apple and it has enter email address. I would be really curious to see how many people are doing the sign in with Google or Apple, because I would say that that's another level of harder again, where like with signing with email, not that many people know about this, but you can actually do like, if your email is like illuvium@gmail.com, you could type in illuvium+1@gmail.com and do +1, +2, +3, and it will all redirect to the same email. But you can register like 100 accounts with something with the one email through that method.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to know.
With Google sign-in, you obviously can't do that. So that sort of information would be really fascinating, because it's, again, like I said, it's harder again to just bot the entire thing if using Google sign-in for the same reason you said, Viper, is that's the sort of stuff that Google or whatever is going to catch on to if you're a bot. So I would be curious to see that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wonder what spiked that high user number right now. Was it Guild of Guardians, you think?
I'm not sure. They said that 3 main games have launched. Guild of Guardians, I guess. Illuvium's a big one that's coming soon, so they're probably including that. I'm not entirely sure what the third game is, but I suspect it's mostly Guild of Guardians.
Yeah,
I don't know what the third one is, though. Do you know what it is?
no clue. But I wonder if Illuvium, like the Sepolia, the testnet, is already included in that demographic.
There should be
Yeah.
testnet passport accounts.
But your testnet passport account is linked to your real IMX passport account. So
It's the same passport. So that would be included. But Kieran and stuff have mentioned that we have about 100,000 signups for the testnet beta. So if you even assume Guild of Guardians has 300K, and it could be quite even higher because it's mobile, where's the rest of it coming from? Maybe just general excitement for the future of IMX? I don't know.
I think it's probably a lot of like airdrop farmers, but because they had a lot of stuff where you use their ecosystem and stuff like that, you get rewards. So I think a lot of it could come from that. I'm excited, or I'm curious how many airdrop farmers we will get and how hard will be the drop off for Illuvium after that is done. But it's going to be in the first 5 months, so we'll see. Before we talk about that, welcome everybody to the podcast. We got Scoriox right here. Thank you very much for joining. I think everybody knows Scoriox, but if they don't, you want to give like a 1-sentence introduction? You can take it.
I've been here. I haven't been here the longest in terms of creating content about Illuvium, but I've been here a while. I think many consider me a veteran in this particular niche nowadays, and yeah, I just love talking about Illuvium, discussing it, and speculating on where it could go in the future.
100%. I would have said you were here the longest. Who would be the longest who is still active, or are you counting inactive?
Yeah, well, I'm counting inactive. I might be the last remaining active, or the oldest active, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're definitely the biggest from subscriber-wise on YouTube of the active ones, with whooping 6,000.
Yeah, just past 6K like last week, I think. So growth has been good these past few months. I'm not entirely sure why. I know my Guild of Guardians video got me a lot of extra subs, which I did not expect. So yeah, I'm looking forward to covering a variety of different topics, including Illuvium, obviously.
Yeah, so you're basically not a Illuvium only creator anymore, and we cannot put you in our
I mean,
anymore.
If 90% of my content is Illuvium, then I'm an Illuvium only creator. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
but
you're actually onboarding with the other videos to Illuvium if you do that much Illuvium content.
Yeah, but really it's about what the audience wants, and there's the deeper people seem to get down the Web3 rabbit hole, the more they start to crave other games and things like that. I think a lot of people, if they're coming to me to watch Illuvium content, they've already got an IMX passport. They've already got all that set up. And so it actually makes a lot of sense for me to be like, look, I think this other IMX game is pretty cool. You guys might like to have a look at it. And a lot of people are going to really enjoy that. But where that gets interesting is when I try to talk about a game that isn't on IMX, and it does fall on deaf ears a little bit. I think Heroes of Mavia had that a tiny bit, but it was easy enough to download and play. But if I start talking about something like on Ronin, people just won't care. And that's fine. That's fine. I personally like IMX. I like keeping everything in one place. It's such a pain to go elsewhere, I'll tell you that much. But yeah.
I can relate a lot to that. Like I really, somebody would tell me like, yeah, this game is like on Soul and you have to like get this wallet and stuff. I'm like, whatever. Like I already lost interest basically.
Yeah, and Derek can relate very good to people that are not yet on IMX or not yet in the crypto gaming space, where they're like, because we are in it and we have such a big barrier if somebody tells us, oh, go to this other chain because there is this amazing game. And very much it's the same for newcomers who are like, oh, I have to now do a wallet, do all of this. Like there is a multitude of things that you have to get organized, get set up before you actually can play the game. And I hope Immutable Passport is going to help with that. But yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I'm happy I got everything set up on my Immutable, on my Ethereum chain, and I'm good here. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good. I've used pretty much all the chains at this point. I think I've even used Blast recently, and I use quite a bit of Base for parallel and stuff like that. But the one thing that I have an issue with right now is immutable ZK EVM. It's fucking awful. Holy crap. It's really funny where the passport makes it super easy if you've just started there, but it's really hard if you're a Web3 native trying to get involved with it. It's really painful, and you get there eventually, but they need to fix it a little bit. They need more subsidies. I'm really sick of like transfer Ethereum to this wallet, and now I need something else for gas fees, and now I'm going to try and get that token onto the wallet somehow. That thing should have been a thing in the past, like 2 years ago. You should be subsidizing this thing. If you have ETH in your wallet, have some sort of back end contract that takes that and uses it for gas. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's outrageous.
Yeah. I'm glad about the layer 2 option that we have. I mean, it still takes some work and effort to get everything on there, and hopefully everybody you interact with is on there. But then it's the best feeling when you're actually doing stuff on the blockchain, gas free, without any fees connected. The other day we hosted a tournament. I had to send out 15 times prize pools, and some of the prize pool was like $10, and that would have not been worth it on anything else than layer 2.
Yeah. IMX is really solid for gas free. It's the only logical answer when it comes to crypto gaming in general. Even Solana's like, we have cheap gas fees and all that sort of stuff. Who cares? Make it nothing. Why is it not nothing? Just do that.
And the issue with nothing is like you need to pay validators essentially, right? Like there need to be some sort of level of fees generated, even if it is only marginally small amounts, but like completely nothing, that is tough, right? Like talking about like 1 cent or something per transaction, okay, easy. But like getting it to entirely nothing is that's tough. There's one, I forgot the name, there's one chain that wants to do that. I don't know what their idea is, how to make it reality though.
Yeah, there comes.
Well, you have to pay someone. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean that's like a centralized chain, and a centralized thing that they want to do, which still makes sense. Like you can still use blockchain as a validator and so on, especially if you want to transact stable coins, or maybe even if you want to think about just standard banking system, right? Using stable coins and blockchain would be helpful in a lot of senses on standard financial system, and well, there probably wouldn't need to be fees there in that sense, right? Like the bank can just, I don't know, somebody provides them the service and they pay them something per, I don't know, month or whatever, right?
Yeah, but like the way IMX has done it is really smart. Basically, they subsidize all of the transactions utilizing the NFT marketplace, where all the trading fees and things like that go into some sort of pool or something, and they basically pay out all the validators and stuff that way. And that's not the only way you can do it. I can think of 1,000 ways you can do it. You've got all the advertising stuff. You're like, IMX will promote your project. You pay us a fee, and we'll use that to start subsidizing things. You do Google ads. You do all this sort of stuff to just subsidize those fees. The fees are zero, and everyone has a good experience. I know there's some risks to that where if you don't know what your income is, you can't necessarily pay out the validators. But with the trading fees, seems to be more than plenty for IMX so far, so I don't see why not.
It is the issue, right? You can you can essentially have that model, but then on the side of the user base, right? Let's say everybody is on IMX and they say it's like free, and obviously they just use, I don't know, marketplace fees and whatever other sources of revenue they can generate to cover that. Then what if you have this, maybe not monopoly setting, but you have this L2 that everybody relies on? They say, well, now we do actually want to make more money off this, and we do charge 1 cent or something per transaction, right? So I think you still probably have to have somewhat in mind that maybe at one day they're going to be like, okay, we have enough users and we're big enough, they're not all going to leave if we charge a cent or 0.1 cent or whatever per transaction. That's like this thing that we see in a lot of like streaming services, right? Like everything is getting more expensive. Then you have websites like Twitch and YouTube pushing more advertisement, making it harder to dodge the advertisement. They just essentially have grown enough and have enough of an almost monopoly setting in some sense that they feel like, well, yeah, we can just cash cow things now. It's the same you see in gaming a lot as well, right? Where things are, I don't know, starting out really, really cheap on the company side. They make products very, very accessible. And then later on, the products essentially just are more expensive because they have enough of a player base or following base, and they can just charge that. And then it's still a company, right? You're still essentially operating profit oriented. It's not just, well, we can have 1 million users, like figurative number, right? You can have 1 million users and make 0.001 cent per, or you can have 100,000 and make 1 cent each. Then like the second option just makes the company more profit.
That's basically every business model, right? Because you want to get some customers. First, your service is like 3 times cheaper than everybody else, than your competitors. You get those customers, and then you're going to bump up those prices and hope enough stay to make it sustainable. I think you can only do this when you already start with a paid model in some kind of way. Because if you market your whole product as free to play, and then 1 year later, okay, now you're going to charge X amount for it, that's going to kind of go against the whole brand identity. And I think this is similar also with IMX. Even if they start charging 1 cent on layer 2, like that was what everybody was promised on layer 2, no gas fees. And then everybody would feel betrayed, and I think that would hurt more than it would help them.
Yeah, honestly, I think you bump up the marketplace fees. If the fees are 2% right now, you bump them up to 2.5. And I think, like, really, when you're making a trade, if something increases 0.5%, you're not going to stop making the trade. Most people don't feel it.
Instead of increasing the fees, though, because then I guess you take more from the end user, right? But you could also ask, like, you could also just ask, like, the gaming companies to be like, well, you guys gonna cover this, like, whatever amount of, like, cent or 0 point something cent per transaction, right? You don't have to ask the user to cover it, right?
Yeah.
So instead of having the user get less percentage out of everything, you can go to like, well, all of you games are using our marketplace, and there's like a bunch of transactions that are like completely worthless items, maybe, right? Like if everything is an NFT and you need 10,000 of an item in a video game, and there's like 10,000 transactions, like maybe it gets to a point where it's like annoying that you ask like the companies to essentially figure out, I don't know, either like really small like number, right? Or just change the system
rate
in your game or something like that, right?
Yeah, or they pay X amount per month, something like that. Are they being charged already? Must be, right?
I'm not as far as I'm aware. I think it's just a fee structure. Like IMX takes a percentage, and the companies take a percentage on the fees.
All right.
But yeah, I can really see that they're just going to be like, well, the company out of maybe their fees part or something, because like that's the issue with like some. That's why I don't know, in some games you have the talks about like, is like the free to play part of the game, should those actually be NFTs or not, right? Because maybe you have like an infinite amount, like somebody could like maliciously bot that as well and give you like an infinite amount of transactions with that, right? Like maybe that is like a breaking point. Maybe there's like some issue there. So like I don't know, just playing devil's advocate, thinking of problems.
I think you're not wrong at all, but there are companies that have started doing some really neat solutions to this, and Pirate Nation is the most notable one to me, where they've done like a really cool way of fixing that. Basically, it's really simple. You need to get to Commander rank 10 before you're allowed to use their marketplace, because it's all relatively centralized. I don't know how you would. It's hard to fix in something like IMX because it's a little bit less central. It's quite decentralized in a lot of ways. But if you could put that sort of system in, it'd be pretty cool. For example, in Pirate Nation, to get to Command rank 10, you have to play consistently for like 2 months. And it's like, at what point is it unprofitable for a bot to do that? You know what I mean? You could never delete bots, and I'll say that until the day I die. But basically, you just have to disincentivize them enough that people stop doing it, and that's the only way to defeat them. And this is another great way to do it. That you can implement like 5 ways to make it annoying to bot, and then there just won't be bots.
Yeah, I saw a great example somewhere in a video of a World of Warcraft developer, where their way of defeating the bots would just be, for example, in a dungeon, there would be this farming route where the bots would run, and they would just move one rock just a few meters to the side, so now all the bots would run into the rock. And like every month, just move a little bit of the rocks, so they would have to make new pathing and stuff like that. Because yeah, you gotta get creative, I think, with trying to defeat bots. it's not
Yeah,
like
I think
as straightforward as people think.
on that topic, Pirate Software, I'm sure you guys have both seen him. He talks a lot on this subject, and the way he talks about it's really interesting because he used to work as a Blizzard. He used to pretty much be the guy that like destroys bots and things like that for Blizzard for a little while and stuff like that. And basically the big thing he said is you can't really get rid of bots, but you can get rid of the people who make the bots, which is quite fascinating. So what you'll do is you'll let bots run for quite some time until they amass and there's like a million bots in the ecosystem, and then you'll nuke them all at once. And what that means is that the person who sold all the bots to all these people are like, shit, my bot doesn't work. I'm going to go get a refund. And the person who sold them all is like, oh, crap, I don't want to deal with this. And they just bail, you know? So you just make it hell for the people that are making the bots rather than actually stopping botting altogether, which I think is another way to take. It's just like it's another way to disincentivize doing it. That happens enough times, and you're like, is it worth the risk to go into this business and creating bots?
I think it's like a fair take, but it's like a 10 years ago take, right? Like it's just so easy nowadays for anybody who wants to learn enough programming to be able to create something like this. And there's enough easily accessible tools that will help you, teach you the skills you need. So you can never beat the people like that, right? Because it's not even, you say it's like somebody makes those a financial motive. I mean, you also have like people who are just like trolls who just make it out of a hobby or malicious or whatever intents, right? Like especially in like a Web3 space where there's like so many small companies competing, right? Like I wonder how often there's actually people just programming bots to sabotage other games. Like you mentioned Parallel earlier, right? Like in Parallel, like every single day I play Parallel, I queue into like bots that just concede turn one. I don't get anything for that. I don't get MMR. I don't get like rewards, right? It just takes me roughly 2 minutes of my time that I just lose. And the same for like every other person I talk to playing that game, like, they have that as well. So what do they get? Like there's nothing to get off that bot. It's just like to mess with people, right? It's just annoy the developers, annoy the players, things like that. So it's like, well, maybe it's just some troll, but there is also an incentive from, like, in theory, other companies to be like, yeah, let's like fuck with them, because they don't currently have a good solution to this. They currently don't have like a good way of like instantly ban, or the system that they have of conceding is like exploitable and so on.
Yeah, but I mean, that's an interesting point you make, because I think that's another battle of incentives. Myself, the other day, I conceded turn 1 4 games in a row on Parallel. Myself,
You're an asshole.
because in a Shroud matchup, I lose 100% of the time, and so I just...
but then you essentially scammed. Yeah, but okay, I mean, you essentially like scammed, because the system doesn't give the other person what, like, it doesn't give them MMR, it doesn't give them rewards. So you like scam the other person.
It doesn't block me. If I got like a 10-minute cooldown for doing it, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, it's a design.
It's a waste of my time to play the 20-minute match that I know I'm going to lose.
You can play until turn 2 and then concede.
Yeah, but
and then you're not an asshole anymore.
I didn't know that. If that gives me stuff, I will. I don't.
Yeah, really it's like until both players have played turn 2.
It's definitely the issue is on the developer side, right? This system is just very flawed, easily.
I know. Like, if you intentionally like abuse that to like deny someone rewards, I think it's not sportsman-like behavior.
Compare it with Hearthstone. If they had a feature where when you give up in the first round, you don't lose anything, everybody's going to do that constantly. Let's just put a timer, put anything on there.
I mean, you're still gonna be called out in the community of like, yo, guy, you're an asshole for doing this. The same way people are doing that in Parallel, right? Like every day, there's like people in Discord calling out others. I mean, there's like the early conceding thing, which is like, okay, that's like on the devs, like they like messed up their like anti-bot or anti-abusable system. They didn't think about it. Sure, players like abuse the devs messing something up to like piss off another player. I don't think so. We can have like ideological debates about that. I don't think that goes anywhere. And in Parallel, there's like the other thing where you can actually bug abuse, where you lose nothing, right? Where you disconnect in the like loading stream into the game, you lose nothing for that. So you have people who constantly do that. And that is like known bug, it's known bug abuse, right? The devs have said, well, you won't get like manually, we take manual reports against you, and I hope that they actually don't give those people like rewards anymore. And yeah, that's like every day. I'm like in a more like not the main Parallel Discord, and more like tryhard player Discord, right? Every day people complain about that. every day people complain, well, this guy, same guy again, it's just like loading screen dodging, and you're going to have like 50 people reporting the guy to the devs, and they probably don't get rewards because they like bug abuse that, right? So it's like, yeah, you can do that, but I mean, the devs are under no obligation to be like, yeah, this is a known bug and you abuse it. So like, I don't know, maybe they ban your account, maybe they lock it out for a month, maybe they don't pay you rewards or whatever, right? Like it's under their discretion to do that. And it's under like the player side discretion to be like, this is what we as a community consider sportsmanlike behavior. And this is what we as a community don't consider sportsmanlike behavior. And if you have the majority of people be like, yeah, that's like unsportsmanlike, then yeah, you're going to have the majority of people think that's like a shitty thing to do, right? Nothing against you, Stories, but like, yeah.
No, I would have. If they gave me a 1 month ban, I would have no complaints, and that would be perfectly fine with me. I would welcome it. I just don't have the time to run 20 minutes. It's more that the only reason I've done it is the game just has so many issues. Now, maybe Shroud isn't broken. I think the matchup is just really shit for me. Fine.
Yeah, the worst class in
but the game
right now,
just plays so slow. And so it's unbearable for me to go through a 20, 25 minute. I don't have the time to go through 25 minutes where I know I'm going to lose. And so if they ban me, that's fine. I don't really lose anything because I don't care enough because it just takes too long. If it was a bit faster and you could, queue up multiple actions at once, it's all the little things, you know what I mean? It's the little things that separate Parallel from Hearthstone, and I hope those things get added and improved in the future. But yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Parallel on like the gaming developer topic is essentially they have decided to just push out a product as early as possible that is like minimum viable, right? Which means there's a bunch of bugs, there's a bunch of issues, quality of life is utterly bad, like nothing is optimized. They had like memory issues in the last update and so on, right? Like none of that is like good or even remotely good, but there is a game that people can, right? There's a game that people can play. There's a game that people can spend money for. They can show daily users, monthly users. They can show how much money they've made selling cards and packs. They have like all those things that they can use to raise more funds, to create more products, to hire more people and so on, right? It's just like the path that they have chosen. Like I think there comes with upsides, it comes with downsides, right? Illuvium is the polar opposite. Like anything that Illuvium has released did not have any of these like crazy bugs, right? There was never anything remotely as exploitable as the things that are in Parallel, and quality of life and so on was always better. Like, yeah, there was always something you could have done better in Illuvium as well, right? Like all the beta iterations, but it was always like a more polished thing. And people weren't able to spend money yet as well.
It was almost too polished for a beta. Sometimes I'm like, dude, just give us the game. But then again, on the point of nobody has really exploited much in Illuvium yet, so far there was no incentive for it, right? It was all fake money. You wouldn't actually get any real NFTs, any real money from it.
There were leaderboard rewards in Arena, and there were like no relevantly exploitable bugs in that period.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that in the Arena for sure. I was more talking about Overworld and trying to like get exploits there, where with like wall hacks and whatever.
There
like,
kind of were, but not to like a relevant extent.
Yeah, and I think those we could get a lot there. I don't know how secure it's gonna be and whatever, but I think you cannot really compare it to Parallel because Illuvium is in beta and people don't really care for exploiting it yet.
The difference is like mainnet, like Parallel is on mainnet, right? And Illuvium is not on chain, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I am nervous that people, because testing phases are interesting like that, where everyone can test the game, sure, but you also leave it open for people to find exploits before the main game launches, because the exploits are most practical right at the start. And so I do have this fear at the back of my mind. Someone's found a way to like hack in 100 Ramfires. I mean, obviously they wouldn't just do it on chain because then the team will find the exploit, but they've just like, okay, I can hack in Alluvials. I figured out how to do it. And then they just keep it to themselves. They don't tell anyone and they hope that it's still there when the main net rolls around. That's a fear of mine. But at the same time, our community is pretty solid and we have enough. Crypto's interesting in that way. There's so many awesome overlaps. Like the overlap with gaming is a lot smaller than the overlap with both finance and tech. We have a lot of people that are really tech savvy that are in the crypto space, and a lot of people that are really finance savvy in the crypto space, with not only leads to higher revenues for gaming projects because a lot of them tend to have more money than your typical non-crypto gamer. And then you also have the tech side of things where a lot of them understand this sort of stuff really well. And so they can both find the exploits and help people identify them. But at the same time, if you have bad actors, there might be there as well. But you hope that there's enough good actors that it works itself out.
It's a question how much money can there be made, right? Like, can there be more money made if you go and tell the companies, yo, I found this exploit, or things like that? Like, I mean, a lot of companies have programs like both in Web 2 and Web 3 where you tell them, well, I just hacked your game and I found this, so give me like a bounty for that. That's a funny thing. And did you see the Apex hacking problem? There was like a few months ago by now.
I might have heard of it. It sounds familiar.
So basically, like, a guy called was like Destroyer, some number, essentially hacked like people's games during competitive events.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hacked into like people's clients and gave them like aim assist and things like that during competitive games. So the company EA didn't have a program or anything. So the guy's response in an interview was like, yeah, they don't have like a program to pay me anything and so on. So like, why would I go and tell them the problem? He said like they are aware of it, they can go and fix it and so on. Sure, but I'm not gonna like exactly tell them what I did because there's nothing for me to be gained off that, right? Which I think that's like a stupid thing. Like, just put like some level of bounty out there for these like really bad exploits, like being able to hack into like giving other people's like cheats essentially, right? It is pretty bad. And it can, like, if you would have had malicious intents, right, you can just like get people just like banned for life from those events and so on. So you have a lot of smart people like that, but then there's a question: what path do they choose, right? Do they want to exploit something for just like the money gain? And then the question is like, how much money is there to be gained? Like, how much money could you gain from like cloning Illuviums, and how difficult would that skill be? And how else could you leverage that skill in maybe not cheating some Web3 game, but exploiting like something bigger than a Web3 game, or just like working at a company that probably is going to pay you a lot of money so that their systems aren't getting exploited.
Yeah. I mean, and Pirate Software talked about it a lot too. Like, Apex should really be fixing this sort of stuff and things like that. And they probably hacked the server, or who knows. But like, you're right, putting out bounties and stuff like this. And the problem is that companies rarely see some of the opportunities here. Like, if you put out a bounty, the company, all they see is we have to spend 100, 200 grand doing this thing. Whereas they could be seeing it as we can spend 100, 200 grand making even more money. Because what you can turn all this stuff into a positive. No matter what, there's always a spin on it. And like, imagine the marketing spin. No, they have not gotten any more eyeballs on Apex than when that hack happened, because it was hilarious and he hacked all those streamers and things like that. It got so many more viewers than probably Apex has ever had before. Imagine if Apex did that on purpose and had a way to fix the patch and told everyone afterwards. You know, the amazing marketing play that would have been? Like, you're just going to find the opportunities, honestly.
Yeah. I think Illuvium had a reward system, right? I think it was for staking, the staking contract, V2.
We have Illuvium does a lot of third-party audits and things like that, which should be a bare minimum in crypto, honestly. But
we also had like bounty really for like people finding
like
something, they're getting money. I don't think we have that anymore, but
I believe we hired a white hat to audit things as well.
Makes sense. And I'm sure if somebody comes with a critical security flaw to Illuvium and is like, yo, I can give you this, give me a bit of money, they are like, all right, you can have the job. Like, that's the logical thing to do, and that's what's been happening ever since the internet, right? If somebody was able to hack into a bank, you got a lot of money and a job. Like,
in that sense, right, exploiting blockchain is also a lot more risky than hacking into like a bank or something, right? Because the blockchain is still a public ledger, and it is possible to track down people, right? Like, you can allot an exchange of like, yeah, well, this account, well, to this wallet address, there were illegal funds sent there, and so on and so on. It's not that easy. Yes, there are tools, just like hide where things came from and so on, right? But now I have to lie. I think I recently saw a stat that it was like around 95% of the time people try to like hide something, you still essentially figure out like these coins were the legally obtained ones and so on. That might be wrong, right? I just remember on the back of my head I read that stat and I didn't delve further into it. But yeah, like a public ledger is not the optimal way to do legal activities on. Like no matter how you look at it, if you compare to like banking system and visa system and so on, there's way more legal activity happening there. And if you think about it, criminals aren't stupid. If crypto would be the more efficient system to do criminal activities, they would use it more than the banking system.
Yeah, well, ultimately, the crypto has to go somewhere for you to be able to use it. And like, there's two ways of doing that. Maybe you have systems where you can use it to pay at a store, but even then, you can track down the store, and that's pretty easy. Or you need to retrieve it into a bank at some point, and which is pretty easy as well. And then obviously there are ways like mixers and things to try and hide that, but ultimately it has to get addressed to a human being somewhere on Earth for them to be able to benefit from that. So as you said, the public ledger actually makes it more difficult in the end. And yeah, I think that's a benefit. So, but like on all this topic, it's quite interesting. Do you think there needs to be like an IIP for a bounty program, say a pool of 50K, and if you find a bounty, you get a couple ILV or whatever it is? Or do you think that would be beneficial to Illuvium?
I think that would be great. Why not, right? Illuvium is using their money very good, but they're also very loosely. Like we're doing tournaments, we're doing creator rewards, we're doing a lot of money incentivized marketing campaigns. And that would be good marketing and obviously the most important thing, a good initiative for increasing the security in Illuvium. And as long, I think it's a bit hard to put the guidelines, what you actually pay out, whereas the line of it being a critical exploit or whatever it is. But if they can figure that out, I think it's a great idea.
I think it's like I'm not aware on like what labs like internal current capabilities and options are, or what they are just already doing on that end, right? It's probably not necessarily something you would go and yes, we are exactly doing this and that for like security measures, right? I can see downsides in being super transparent about those things as well. So I don't know about like the IIP idea or something, right? Like they maybe put it in like the feedback ideas thing of like, yo, did you guys think about this? Well, it's probably like an obvious enough idea to have thought about. So I'm not sure essentially if there's like something to be like something relevant to be brought up, because again, like I think it's just like one of the obvious things that are like certainly in people's minds.
Yeah, I think it's an added benefit. I don't think really takes away from internal systems, which is quite nice. And I think the reason Illuvium doesn't do a lot of things like that is simply a money thing. They've been cutting down costs as much as they can over the past year and a half, and they don't necessarily want to add any unnecessary burden. And the big part of that is the community. The community likes to keep them accountable and say, try and keep your margins low if you can, so that you can have as long a runway as possible. But that's the point of the IIP sometimes, which is really nice, is you can post this thing and the community is like, yeah, we think that's worth the spend. Then labs can go, okay, well, this is an extra spend we didn't think we really wanted to do, but the community's all for it. And so the money is not really as much of an issue anymore. I mean, obviously you want to try and take it out of something like the in-game rewards pool so it doesn't affect runway. But that's all a part of the IIP. The community will see that as well. They'll be like, it's a part of runway, probably not worth it, or whatever it is. So there's all those sorts of elements.
No, like for sure. I mean, especially the part of like take it out of the like essentially like the airdrop or in-game rewards pool and so on, right? And you can definitely have the community. Well, what do you guys value more? But I always think on topics like this, it is cool to have a discussion engaged, or not engaged. Cool to have a discussion started from the community side for sure. But we need so much input from labs on that. That is not an idea where okay, community goes into the feedback ideas channel and there's 1,000 messages without team members or so on swaying in and giving a lot of input on what currently is done, what currently is possible, what are like upsides and downside on both ideas and approaches and so on. So I think that's like always a bit harder one to make work, because you just need to have a lot of feedback from labs first on it, right? And then like sometimes community is, I don't know, sometimes it's like more or less we cannot make uneducated decisions on stuff like that is what I want to say basically. And I think
Yeah,
oftentimes the things delve into that, but
Yeah.
it comes like that.
Yeah. The execution's hard because you need someone to liaison with labs. You need someone from labs that has the time to go and implement fixes for these bugs and talk with these people and stuff like that. And that's all time that could be spent building the game and or doing other managerial things. So, sometimes some of these proposals are like, yeah, we could do it if we hire 3 more people. And then it's just like, at what point is it impractical?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they are very much behind security and getting it to the top level of security, because there has been a big hack in the past, right? And that was a big wake up call, and after that there were way more audits being done and all of that stuff. So I'm sure they're very much behind it themselves. But yeah, I think a bounty could be a good idea, but maybe it's the best idea to nudge them and say like, hey, have you thought about that? How about that? And yeah, but I'm always for IAPs. Recently we have been talking in the ICC, and we just said we have to enable the community more and just let them have their way, because that's what we're here for. You guys can be the bad ones and say no. Then you can be.
We don't want anyone to be the bad guy.
It's like on that topic, right? It's important that there's still a level of is this like entirely plausible to do or not, right? Like it shouldn't be everything just becomes an IIP and it's like 1 + 1 is 3 kind of thing. It's like, well, it's just a waste of time of everybody involved at the end, right? If that is the case. So it should obviously be vetted and correct and so on and so on. Like it shouldn't just be like anything.
Usually the first vetting happens through the community with the up and downvotes and community sentiment. So I think so far, as we're still like a tight-knit community in some ways, usually 1 + 1 is 3. We'll never get to the IIP stage.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the job of ICC in the end, right? ICC is supposed to check, like, okay, were people like given factually correct information on this topic, on this IIP, on this idea? Were people just, I don't know, reiterating wrong statements or maybe misleading statements and so on and whatnot, right? And then, well, so yeah, you guys essentially do that vetting process, and that certainly is important. It's not just like, well, 25 upvotes, let's go. If it's 25 upvotes and people were just, I don't know, lied to or misguided, then yeah, I mean, you have to like sway in there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, my bad for using the word ICC. we straight dove into there. I think it's interesting conversations. The only problem I have is it's so hard to have like a fluid conversation, trying to avoid NDAs and stuff like that. I think that has been a main issue of transparency in all these areas.
I think the value of those chats is a transparent discussion between everyone, and it's really sectioned off. So at the moment, if you want to talk about these sorts of ideas in general chat, it gets cluttered with all the new people coming in and all the other topics people want to discuss and things like that. But you put it in the feedback channel, and the team is like directly responding to a direct question. Labs, IMC, ICC, they can all respond to this thing directly. And so it's really easy to have a conversation between all of the stakeholders in one place for one topic. It's just really helpful. Whether it goes either direction.
There's just this problem where a few people are maybe angry at the topic or at the situation, and they get very loud and very repetitive. And then suddenly you go to bed. All right, I've read up everything. Took me like an hour. I wake up and there's 670 new messages, which after 2 hours you're done reading, which we have to do, right? We have to stay informed on everything that's going on in Discord. After 2 hours of reading, you realize there was like one real new statement made, and everything else was like jibber jabber or whatever it is. And that's, I think, the unconstructive part of that. But there's not really a work around that yet. We cannot just.
No, I think that's like a tough thing. Essentially, that you have a lot of very repetitive statements and messages. I think Discord is to some extent limiting in what is even possible to implement or what is possible to fix there, right? Like a lot of the time, something like we think on now X and community notes, right? Like it would be really nice to have this community notes feature to just post, well, this was just said, but this is like the caveat that was missed out, or this statement is just untrue and so on. I think like one of the most like most like visible examples recently is like when talking about land sale, right? And people say, well, you made 72 million revenue for labs. It is a horrendously wrong statement, right? It's like 72 million in purchasing power were used to buy land. Now a portion of that was ETH, and a portion of that ETH was going to labs through Reftus, which I think was like 1.7 mil or something like that. But saying like 72 mil revenue when labs got 1.7 mil in reality, that's a crazy difference. And the people will argue, well, yeah, but 72, this is like true and this, and that was used in marketing and so on. Okay, but it is just at best, there's a lot of caveats that go with that community notes kind of feature, or at worst, it's just a fact, like strict, like wrong statement. Like we cannot debate on how we want to phrase this and so on. And I always have to like use nice words when I talk about these topics and be politically correct myself, especially obviously. So, yeah, like, but that's like something where I feel like, okay, somebody reading that has to know, well, there were not 72 million in ETH sent to the treasury on the runway of the project. That is not what happened there. And yeah, stuff like that I think is like very, very relevant to note and so on. I think that's like the trouble on the governance topic sometimes.
Could be cool if we had like a neutral AI mod who is in specific channels, is like moderating every message and deleting them if, oh, you already said that, bang, it's gone. And oh, you're missing out this information, and that's it.
I mean, I think deleting is tough, but like actually just replying to it and saying like this was already discussed above here, linked to like the former dialogue or something, so you don't have a repeat of like 10 times the same discussion happening.
Yeah,
right?
Or like collapse it and say like repetitive or whatever. Like just some way of getting rid of all the hot air and just get to the nitty gritty.
I mean, it's not only getting rid of like what like some people might perceive as like what negative inputs and sentiments and statements and like bad faith statements and so on, right? Like all of that is like
really talking about repeating the same thing. Like
but even that, right? Like some people can argue like, oh, it's not the same thing. I'm doing this or that. I have this other intention and so on. But that's just like the trouble of the setup that like, the governance channel has, right? There's like the technical limitations. So like, I agree. Like having a considerably neutral tool that could help with just making a lot of the governance related things easier to view through, especially for if new people go in there and they read this and they're like, well, this was like 10 hours and there were 5 actually relevant messages or something, or 5 overall talking points. That would be nice. I mean, having AI summarize the talking points would also be nice, but there's also always the issue of like ChatGPT, especially in earlier stages, is a good example. It's not actually an objective tool, right? There's still data given to it, and it's still on the output that ChatGPT gives us. There's like another layer of be sure to say this or phrase it this way or do this or hold this opinion and so on. Like it's obviously not an objective tool like ChatGPT as an example, right? So you would need to have an AI and you would need to be verifying that AI is not having some bias towards anything. I think that's a tough thing to do, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've used ChatGPT a lot and for summarizing on occasion. And it's not even that the bias is one thing for sure, but the other thing is it misses a lot of stuff. Like when you have a big enough conversation, like if you're trying to get ChatGPT to summarize, let's say like 200 messages, it's going to miss a surprising amount. It's going to get maybe the general gist, but the general gist isn't really what you want from that conversation. You do want the really specifics. You want like, this person said something really insightful. I want you to pick this message out and give it to me verbatim. There's going to be like 5 or 6 of those messages that summarize the chat really well. But instead, what ChatGPT will do is it'll try and summarize the entire thing in a really generalized, broad strokes thing that's maybe helpful to a certain extent, but it's not nearly as helpful as finding some of the really key stuff that people have said the first time in the conversation. It's just not as good information.
Yeah. I think the one thing that ChatGPT is missing, for example, is to fully understand the conversation and therefore not leaving out a single important thing. Whereas we read something, we would never delete I can't think of an example, but a key word or a key phrase that has been used, we would never delete it because we realize this is important for the conversation. But the AI is just like, yeah, whatever, we can delete this sentence. We still get the gist of it, like you say. Like it, I don't know.
To some extent, it's also a question of prompting the AI correctly, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That is like essentially difficult part, because like ChatGPT even would probably be giving you the summary that you're looking for, but you have to figure out how can I ask the question that it gives me the right answer. And that is like a new skill set that we even have to learn, because I mean, we didn't go to school learning how to talk to ChatGPT, but that genuinely is a skill set, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting to learn as well. Like, and I think I do so much things subconsciously now. Like now when I talk to ChatGPT, I always say like stuff like, don't change any of my words when I sell spell check or something like this, like just some safe prompts to not go into the what I think are bad habits for the output that I want to have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But hey, I think that's one of the coolest times we're living right now. If there is ever going to be history books in the future, we're definitely going to be a big chapter for that. The rise of the AI. That's like one of the biggest human inventions, I think. This has been always in the science fiction books and everything, and now we're living it, and it feels so normal, which is so weird. We're in the future right now, but it feels like it's normal. But yeah,
everything's moving so quickly. Like the world is moving quickly in general, but crypto moves at like twice the speed of that, and so keeping up is quite the challenge. I definitely wish I had more free time and to focus on that sort of thing.
Yeah,
crypto is just at the forefront of technology, essentially, right? Because everybody, like, crypto is the way to get a lot of VC funding and things like that, right? So everybody who wants to make something probably is like, okay, how can I integrate blockchain? I'm going to get more VC money. I'm going to have easy access to VC money if I do that. So let me integrate blockchain somehow, and or AI, right? That those are like the two things at this point, blockchain, AI, and then like you're going to get the funding for your project, and you can just do whatever you want to do, right? Especially if it's just a useful tool for people. And there's a lot of useful things to be made, right? Especially in the user, like the quality of life side of things and so on for people.
Yeah. 100%. Hello. Yeah. We're diving back into this, into the robotic dogs, AI friends, AI girlfriends, AI assistant, man.
Oh God.
Oh God, yeah.
Scoriox, what do you think about the future AI girlfriend? You're gonna have one or 5?
I think it'll probably end the human race.
Oh yeah, and that.
I know what I was like when I was 18 or 19. I would have jumped at that chance, honestly. I'm glad that they're coming in now and not when I was a kid. Honestly, it's hard for people out there, boys and men and women. It just is.
That is very true, because it's already so easy to just play games all day, never meet anybody, and everything that is being invented makes it just easier that you never actually have to see another face except it's on the screen. And that's I think definitely not a healthy habit.
I think it's extremely dangerous. At the same time, I'm a big advocate for capitalism, and in a certain sense, I think AI girlfriends are almost like the capitalism of the social environment, where it will weed out all of the people that really have a very low barrier for effort sort of thing, and then it'll make it easier for those that want to go out there and put in the effort.
That's true. That's
so I feel kind of happy for those that are willing to put in the work, that it's going to be even easier for their work to reap rewards, whether it be in dating or otherwise. I think AI is a similar effect in general, where the people that are willing to learn all the ChatGPT stuff are going to get ahead really easily, because I suspect most people won't. And so that's quite interesting. I do think it's going to end the human race, so I think it's a net loss. And if we should avoid doing it if we can, honestly, but it's going to make a crap ton of money, so it's definitely going to happen. But yeah,
I really like your take there. If I understood it correctly, it kind of is, because so far in human evolution, or whatever you want to call it, we kind of went against evolution, and somebody who has a broken leg doesn't die anymore, and therefore I hope I get a good metaphor there, but in nature, if a lion gets injured, everybody ignores him. He's gonna die because he's injured. In humans, we have kind of countered that with hospitals, with medicine. Also, if you're physically totally fit, maybe it's not the best chance of survival because somebody who is smart has more chances of getting money, more chances of getting laid, therefore, or buying food or whatever it is. You know what I want to get at? But now
I
you
mean,
said
humans have developed a social construct, right?
we
And they live in
countered Darwin,
groups.
right? Basically, in some way, or we altered the natural evolution.
No,
And
I think that the human evolution is just that as like multiple people together are stronger than one alone. Like this, the fittest survives, yes,
yeah, that
but
was
if the
the
fittest
Homo
is alone,
sapien.
then yeah, that's how we as Homo sapiens killed like all the
Yeah, we won
Neanderthalers,
because
even
we
though
were
they were
able
stronger.
to build groups, like large groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then the whole thing of the strongest, well, I guess it started there already by building groups. You don't have those individual traits anymore being the most important, but also like communication skills are suddenly something that
And you can see that if you look at I think the chimpanzees is a good example, right? Where if you look at like who's the leader in the group, if the leader in the group is just really really strong tyrannical kind of monkey, chimpanzee or whatever, uh, they probably like meet a bad end because they have multiple people that will rise up against him. If the guy is maybe not the strongest, but he's like good on the social side of things, good at negotiating with others and having people like be okay with each other and live together, well, they do well. They are the better leaders, and they don't meet this bad end essentially like the ones that want to rule with force, right? So even in like other animals that live in these social constructs, we see that just being the strongest is not necessarily going to be the best because you're going to be up versus like many others, right? Or
right.
at some point you grow old and there's like a stronger
Yeah.
new guy and it's just going to beat you up and so on.
Yeah, I guess
So
there's a lot of
yeah.
caveat, and I cannot just take a lion example there.
No,
What
I
I
mean, yeah,
want,
you're not wrong. It's like the fittest survive. I mean, humans with technology, we've beaten a lot, right? Like our babies don't die anymore. We've eradicated a lot of diseases. Average life expectancy is really, really high nowadays, and so on. Like humans are definitely. I mean, that's the reason why there's so many people on the earth now, right? Because we've eradicated most of the causes that has kept it down over history.
yeah. Where I was gonna go there is when Skorjok said, like, actually the people that are willing to not take the easy route of having an AI girlfriend and go out, they're gonna get rewarded. You basically create a full new Darwin there by everybody who is not strong enough mentally to actually overcome the Hadism, or how it's called, like the easy way of just getting things, and puts in the effort to get
Well,
the real connection to human beings, is going to be able to reproduce because they're other human beings and they're going to survive.
It's
Well, I mean,
already like that, isn't it?
it's already the case.
True.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It's already the case, but as technology keeps improving, it keeps becoming more obvious, if nothing else. I think AI girlfriends are a good example of that.
That's
I think
so
AI
fun.
girlfriends is like the peak of what Benet anticipated like future society to look like, right?
Yeah.
Like essentially, right? Everybody doesn't know Benet, pretty much the guy that invented the idea of modern marketing and psyoping people into buying things or doing things that they previously did not think they want or need. It's like, this is the healthy American breakfast. That's why you guys eat bacon and eggs.
Sounds like that
Or
guy used to be in the Illuvium Discord. Luckily, he's banned now.
I mean, Benet is a genius. I mean, he's
Yeah,
a horrible person, like
that goes often hand in hand.
terrible person, but he's a genius. Like we have to admit that, right? I mean, a lot of cool anecdotes, I guess, right? Like he made like cigarette companies go to him and it's like, well, how can we make more money? He's like, yeah, we can make women start smoking, so we're just gonna make some photo shoots of the feminism parade, and the women are gonna be smoking then, and then now this is the new sign of, well, women should also start smoking. So you have now women gained as a customer base for your product as well. And there's stuff like that, right? So he did things like that. He helped overthrowing some governments and whatever. Crazy guy, super intelligent guy. But his idea for the future was that you're just going to create a society where people in their consumerism, they're just going to have so much, they're going to be so happy that they don't care what the higher up, like politics level and so on, right? Like government level people gonna say or do with them. I think that's the scary part for me. I think that's I see like AI girlfriend. That's like the end game on like this idea from Benet, where well, yeah, I mean. If you're at home, you have like all the entertainment you want, and now you also have like the AI, I guess, boyfriend or girlfriend. I think it's more on the girlfriend side because I think it's like psychologically far easier for men to just be like, yeah, this is like enough for me compared to for women. But yeah, like people are just gonna be, oh, this is fine. Like this life is chill. I have my streaming thing, I have my games, I have my social interactions, maybe with other people online, maybe with the AIs even. The AI is always nice on to me.
My fingers.
I mean, yeah, like you can like buy tools for that as well nowadays, right? So it's like that, I think that is like the actual like horrible end game where people just are okay with that, and then they're okay with like whatever bad shit happens on the political level and so on.
Well, if you thought nicotine was a hell of a drug, artificial social connection is 100% the end game. It is not only one of the hardest drugs to acquire. If you can give people that thing, you can do anything you want, right? Like if you like threaten with taking it away, then they'll do whatever you want. Like I see it as deep rooted in biology. Human connection equals survival. And so if you can control a person's ability to have human connection, that you can control the person.
Yeah. Because at one point, once this evolves in the next stages, you're just going to take away people's family, basically, by plugging it out or whatever you're going to do. That is really scary.
Yeah, just threaten to take on the server, you know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, at the same time, humans are pretty resilient. At some point, they will realize that it's not going to work out and something will break and then it will fix itself. I saw, from what I understand, that's almost the financial cycle as well. And the GFC and things like that. It's just humans on Wall Street and whatever, they got complacent. They said, okay, life is good. Everything is perfect. And then it was unhealthy. It was unsustainable and it broke. And I think that's the same with trying to break down the family, trying to break down human relationships and things like that. Eventually it's going to be like, this isn't sustainable. It's going to break and things are going to slowly repair and heal themselves. Something's going to fix itself eventually. I don't think, I joke about it being human extinction. I think it's going to be a tough time for a lot of people, but I do think people will bounce back eventually. I mean, like, even with the aging population, that's going to cause a huge amount of issues for a long period of time. But after that, it's going to essentially reset itself, where you're going to eventually have so little people that they've got nothing else to do than to create even more people. And then you'll kind of like reset the human race in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they tend to like, I think my take on that, because that's like the basic historical take, right? Like we always go through these cyclical phases, and then I don't know, it's like the good times create weak men create hard times create strong men create good times again, right? And like so far in history, I would always be like, yeah, that's how it's always been. It's probably how it's always gonna be. But our advances in technology are so far nowadays that the question is like, how bad are the bad times gonna be the next time? Like at some point, because we're probably going to go from even worse to even better times. And like at what point is there maybe no comeback from the bad times perspective? That's the thing that I'm like somewhat worried about in the idea that cycle is just going to repeat itself. Like maybe it's actually just going to be over at some point.
Yeah, well, at what point is it Terminator or is it Blade Runner?
I mean, maybe it's maybe just have like a couple of cow colonies on Mars and wherever as well before the like doomsday level kind of things happen.
Now we go into time traveling with Terminator. Because if we would do something really
a Mars
bad
colony
for the
isn't
future,
like that's our lifetime, I think, right?
They would come right now to stop us doing it. So I guess we're still good.
And maybe we don't know. Maybe they failed already.
I don't think time travel exists. I just mean like robots taking over. I'm not going that far. I don't think time travel will ever exist. Yeah, that's about as sci-fi. It's like I love sci-fi as much as the next person, but that's about as like impossible as it gets to me. That doesn't make any sense. You know
how many smart people 100 years would have said this is impossible? Probably.
Nah, that's so different.
Well, It's both
Time
impossible.
travel is bending like the laws of physics in so many unnatural ways that
I mean,
doesn't make any sense
the
to me.
laws of physics that we currently use are not actually true as well, right? Like they only work they only work in between like a certain size level. Like if we go to like too small, then the laws of physics that we use for like our day-to-day life, they don't apply anymore, right? So they are not universally true. They are only true within the parameters that like we use essentially.
Look, if time travel happens, that would be crazy.
I mean, obviously, time travel is going to happen, right? But like, they're like parameters of physics that we use that
Yeah.
they don't actually apply. If I go like on the too small level of something like that, or the too big level, that's true, right? I think that's really interesting because we've recently essentially like started to redefine the idea how we view the world, right? Because people have essentially figured out that the way that we saw physics is not actually universally applicable.
Yeah, I mean, breakthroughs in science always fascinate me. It's like science. I'm very much a numbers guy, and I love numbers because they're so static. But science has always felt like it should be a numbers thing, where numbers are supposed to be 1+1=2. But it's so cool to me that science can evolve and adapt, and people can find new things even to this day. And it's like, sure, maybe it's still all logical and it's all 1+1=2. But now you discovered a new number, which is just, it's cool to me. I like it.
I mean, the question is not right. Like 1+1=2. That's true. But if you go, the equation is what? Like it's like a plus a equals 2a. That's essentially what 1+1=2 is, right? Now,
Yeah.
is that like probable with every number that I use for a, right? And that is the thing that changed in physics or changed in like chemistry or whatever at some point, right? Where you find out that it's not actually a plus a equals 2a, but you have to change this equation. Like the equation is still going to say 1+1=2 in the end, but it's not a plus a equals 2a. Is like the thing that changes essentially.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
All right, you lost.
How many players do you guys think Illuvium will actually have on open beta mainnet? Like within a month? I don't know.
Whew. What do you think, Pass?
Within a month, I'm gonna say some super either too high or too low number. But let me think about it. With everything, like the whole airdrop farmers, all the games, the whole daily active
Oh yeah,
users.
do we include like IZ and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like IZ Beyond and so on and so on?
Oh, okay. I'm more talking about Overworld. That's a fair
Overworld.
point.
Right,
I'm more
Overworld.
talking about Overworld.
I think it's gonna be tough to crack crack the 1 million mark that like Palworld and Mavia and things like this have said. Even though we could do it, but because Mavia because it was a mobile game, that's why it was very easy to do it. And Palworld, yeah, it was just that one hype game that the whole world jumped into. But I would say maybe between 500,000 and a million, maybe 600,000. I don't know. It's very optimistic, I think, but
Oh, damn. I love it.
Yeah. I think my take, I mean, especially if you only talk Overworld, Overworld is like the highest PC requirement game as well, right?
that's a good point.
So like we're only talking
Well,
about.
I'm talking about
yeah.
PC in general. Like Gauntlet would be included.
Oh, yeah, Gauntlet would be included. Okay, I mean that's a big change already, right? Because Gauntlet is like essentially infinite replayability PvP game, while Overworld is like to a great extent it's like you spend money and you collect Illuviums, right? It's very different games, very different target audience.
The reason I'm including, Gauntlet and not something like ILV0 is I see Gauntlet as a genuine pathway into the overworld. And so it's still meaningful for me. Where with ILVZ, it's still a very low likelihood they're going to play ILVZ and be like, oh, I want to play the overworld now. That's probably not going to happen all that often. But Gauntlet is like, they get involved with the IP. They're like, these characters are cool. Maybe I'll give Overworld a shot. I've already got the client downloaded, So I include Gauntlet for that reason.
Yeah, the one thing we'll be onboarding or cross-playing or interoperable from our Illuvium 0 will be to Illuvium Arena on the mobile phone. That's hopefully coming out sometime in the future.
I think if we include Gauntlet and we say Gauntlet, we assume Gauntlet is actually going to be a really good game, right? That is like the baseline assumption I'm going to justify this with. Then I'm like, yeah, we can have like 1 million people play the game. If Gauntlet is just like just AAA tier auto battler that is rivaling TFT, right? Because then you just have the TFT is the best strategy game in the world right now. Like I guess like my take, but it's like the most viewed one on social media, right? Like has a lot of player base and so on. I would consider TFT like the top strategy game, like
What
card
would
game
even
slash
be
auto
place
battler.
2? I can't even think about place 2.
I mean, the biggest card game is like the biggest card games are probably TCGs, right? Like Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece TCG, Magic Online is big. There's like some Harry Potter online game that's big. Yu-Gi-Oh has Master Duel and Duel Links. I think like another one. Like all of those are
Do you
like
count
mid
Pokemon as a
eight.
strategy game?
I mean, the card game for sure, yeah.
No, but the real.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what else is it? I guess like the virtual
Never.
combat game. Sure.
Yeah.
So like there's a bunch of games that like in this like mid 8-figure revenue to like 9-figure plus revenue margin, right? Or like a bunch. It's not that many anymore. Strategy games, not that crazy big. We don't have like a primetime Hearthstone anymore. I guess Hearthstone still somewhat counts. Marvel Step probably counts. Like they're all like mid 8-figure revenue kind of games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Some like if Gauntlet is like that good, right? If it's like on the level of TFT, then it's rivaling all of those games easily. It's rivaling all of those games that are on the downtrend. Most of them outside of TFT. I think that's like the main thing there, because I don't know, like just like the average normal card game just isn't it anymore for people nowadays, right? Like TCGs are doing well, but TCG is like a real life social interaction, and you actually own cards, and most people are revenue positive on those cards over the years as well, which is like a just positive input on those games compared to like Hearthstone, where you just you're net negative, there's nothing you can do with your account and so on. So yeah, I don't know. If you're rivaling that, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure like 7 figures players easy. If we're not rivaling that on a quality side, then like some 6-figure number.
What would you say, Scurrius?
First I'll just say like even I'm a bit zoomer now, where TCGs just take a little bit too long for me to enjoy. Even Hearthstone just takes a little bit too long.
Wait, what?
But that's why
crazy.
playing Hearthstone on the mobile was so good. Like I think Hearthstone was a lot more playable for me on mobile than it is on PC, because on mobile, I'm like lying in bed, so I've got 20, 30 minutes to kill. Same reason I actually really played TFT a lot on mobile and stuff as well. You like 20, 30 minutes to kill, but on PC, it just took a little bit too long. But TFT wasn't as bad because it was an 8-player match, and for the same reason that you can, I used to have a lot of fun playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for like 30 minutes at a time, you know? Like, there's a lot of players at one time. And so if you condense it, you're like 99 players divided by 30 minutes is like one opponent every 10 seconds, which is a fast rate of put through. It's kind of a weird way to view it, but that's kind of how my brain works through it, and why I had a little bit of trouble with 1v1s. But I thought Illuvium Arena was like the perfect, before all the changes at least, it was like the perfect time period for me. I actually really loved the pace of the game, even though it didn't make it a really great game like it could have been if it was a bit slower. I definitely acknowledge that. But yeah, my guess for like the first month or two is actually closer to like 100K. But I definitely expect at least 1 million sometime in 2025.
Yeah, it's gonna ramp up slowly, right? I think what Viper with his prediction said, and what I also said, like I went towards if we can get to the Pal World hype, and Hyper said to the TFT hype. It's basically the best case scenario if we grab that Web 2. Yeah, if we can break through that Web 2, Web 3 gamer bubble barrier, and actually the game is that good and it actually gets the recognition it deserves. Then
we also have like the airdrop, the whole like Web3 Web3 people,
that's the
right?
Navia example.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't only we can say that the airdrop thing and so on, sure, but like Web3 doesn't have that few gamers. Like there's still a couple million like actual people like playing games or having. We can say like having wallets and active wallets, but there are also more people playing those games because a lot of those games actually have like non-wallet ways of playing the games, right? Like a lot of the games are just like, well, you can like in parallel, I can swipe my credit card, buy the battle pass, and have cards that way. I don't need to have a wallet to play that game, and there certainly are people doing that. And the same is true for a lot of other games. So you have a good audience of people that you can attract, and Illuvium is, from what I understand, outside of like sure some people don't like Illuvium, but it is usually seen as what like the furthest along Web3 game with the highest quality. Like I think it's like hard to not be optimistic Illuvium if you're optimistic Web3 because it's 2-3 years ahead of whatever competitor I can look at. So it should be at least that people in Web3 check out Illuvium. Like if you're in Web3, you believe in this concept, and well, you can have the mobile town builder game, you can have the TFT auto battle, you have the 1v1 game, you have a PvE game, you have Overworld. Like all of this took it took far longer to build than anticipated, but that's because we're like 5 games at this point. There's like so much stuff happening. There's so many changes to the overworld and so on, which were initially intended like a year after release. We're gonna have those things, and now it's all alluvials and like all those features, all those upgrades, right? It's pretty crazy how far it's gone. So I think that I don't know. I'm optimistic on the number because I think like if you're in Web3, you should check this game out. And even if you're not in Web3, like it's just fundamentally a game to look at. And if you have the like PC full free to play Gauntlet thing, then I mean that's a good onboarding tool.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll leave it off on is like a bull run can change all of this no matter what. It's just that simple. If a Axie Infinity got 2.7 million during their bull thing, which lasted about 12 months. Like, so the thing is that retail isn't here yet. And if I were jumping into crypto for the first time during another bull run, something hooked me in and I came in. Actually, it was the same case. How I got into crypto the first time is an NFT game. That sounds pretty cool. I want to play a new game. Why not? You know, so if retail does suddenly arrive and a bull run kicks off and all that sort of thing, the first thing they're going to do, if you ask me, is they're going to look for some activity to do in crypto to take up their time and stuff like that. And as you said, it's undeniable that Illuvium's so far ahead that it's just like people are going to try it out. Maybe that's not the game they stick with, but they're going to try that out first, if not second. And that's going to drag a lot of people in. But I don't want to make predictions on if there is going to be or not going to be a bull run. I don't really know. I know a lot of people are confident it's coming and that sort of stuff, but I don't like to base my predictions off that sort of thing. But if there is some sort of bull run, that's going to have a profound impact on both player numbers and everything else.
Yeah. And like you said, they are gonna, when they Google best Web3 crypto game, once Illuvium is out, Illuvium is gonna shine up on all those lists on the very top. And everybody who joins in will have one game that will very much, it's going to be very likely that it resonates with them because one is based around the idea of Pokemon, with everybody in Web3 probably played as a child. The other one is based around TFT, and so on, right? We have, and the mobile games, like we have basically a game for everybody, it feels like. And of course, it's not going to be for everybody, but yeah, I think you cannot have a better setup than Illuvium right now. And I'm super stoked for that.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a good time. For sure.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
All right.
ETFs approved, markets go up.
We're going to see how that goes. Scorius, thank you so much for joining. Any last
That's all good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, anytime. It's really cool to talk to you. I wanted to actually pick your brain a little bit more about things that confuse me, so you could explain it to me. Kind of use the podcast to get a little lesson on IMX. And
yeah, sure. Is there anything?
No, we're gonna do that next time. It's gonna take too long. But you cleared up a lot of other things. I think we had great discussions, and yeah, we're gonna be back next week with another guest. You want to shout anything out, Scoriox? Any channels?
No, just keep up with the pod. It's good. It's always good to keep consistent things going and stuff like that. The download's actually been surprisingly successful in these past few months. So if that helps encourage you to keep this going and make sure you're consistently doing it and everything like that, then I'm glad. And Jeff?
Yeah, hell yeah. Check out the download and check out next week's episode. We're going to be back. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good one.
See ya.
Peace.